Well, sorry, I know you're working, so I won't keep you for too long, but I know you've got a good story about the moment when the power went out, and that was 20 years ago today.
That's crazy. It's one of those events that, where were you when?
Mm-hmm. And where were you when, Dad?
I was at a doctor's office getting annual physical and hooked up to the EKG machine to check my heart rate and stuff like that. And just as they finished up and told me to start pulling off all of the electrodes, I'm pulling stuff off, and then, boom, the lights go out. I'm like, uh-oh, what'd I do? And peek out, put my shirt on, look out into the office. It's totally dark, and it's in a little strip mall, and, every door to every business in the strip mall, the people have the door open and they're looking back and forth going, do you guys have power? Do you guys have power? It was really strange, but yeah.
And it's one thing to be sitting in a room when the powers go out and you've got windows, so it's still bright outside, because it was 4:09 p.m. was when it all boom. And so 10 after 4, so it's still daylight out. So I'm sure there are a fair few people that didn't even realize that the power went out. Like if they weren't watching TV, if they didn't have a computer in front of them, like if they weren't working on stuff, like you might not have even really noticed, but it was a totally pitch black room then, right?
Oh, absolutely. And then, after that, I had to jump in the car and drive home because the family doctor was still in Mississauga at that point. I had to make the drive to Barrie. And as I'm driving through Mississauga, going past streetlight after streetlight that is out, it's like, okay, this is big. This is really big. And the radio stations were still on the air, and reports were coming in from all over, from, down as far as like New York, that the power was out. It was incredible. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen before.
I was looking at the, because there's like the chronological events of like how it all went down. And so it's like the generators in Ohio shut down at 1:31. The half an hour later, the alarm system failed. At 3:05 p.m., trees hit transmission lines in Ohio, knocking them out of service. It was 4:09 when the surge went and 50 million people were left without electricity. The Ontario Premier at the time declares a state of emergency. There was some details too. I got to find the post. It was like how many batteries were purchased. I remember once upon a time you were talking about like the lineups at gas stations.
Well, yeah, initially there was no power to run the gas pumps, so you couldn't get gas. That was part of my adventure coming home from Mississauga, was like, okay, I've got less than a quarter of a tank of gas. I was planning on gassing up before the drive home, and my little Honda was great on gas, but I'm like, am I going to make it? And so I was plotting my route home. It's like, okay, I'm going to go through Orangeville. If things get bad, I can stop at Uncle John's house. So I'm going to go through Loretto. I can stop at Carrie and Chris's house. I'm going to go. I had plotted my route the whole way home just in case the worst should happen, and I ran out of gas. Yeah. And then when they finally were able to get limited power back up, it was crazy, the lineups to get fuel and everything.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so it was like, so Friday morning at 5:20 a.m., most of the province reconnected to the grid, but power supplies unstable. So 6 a.m., lineups at gas stations and grocery stores for people to stock up on batteries and candles, and millions of people were laid off work because the premier called on everybody to save energy by staying home. So everybody was at home and barbecuing, I guess.
We were camping, It's a good thing we had all the camping supplies, because we were able to get by. It was just like a weekend of camping. It was no big deal. The ice was the big thing. It was, people were just going to convenience stores and buying every bag of ice that was in existence.
Yeah, just to try to keep all your food cold. We have one listener named Sue. She commented her granddaughter was born on this day. So about 2 minutes before the power went out. It's just crazy.
It was incredible. And And you go through the timeline. I wonder if in your timeline anywhere does it say at what point the Americans stopped blaming Canada and admitted that it was an American source of the entire thing? Because the first reaction was it's Canada's fault.
And nope, it was Ohio. Man, that is wild. Well, thank you. I won't keep you any longer because I know you're working. But yeah, it was surges between 2,000 and 4,000 megawatts of electricity rushed through New York and Michigan, catching Ontario in between and collapsing the entire power system. Took out 50 million people. Wow.
If you haven't seen the satellite photo of what North America looked like on that day, you need to find that.
Oh, yeah. I remember seeing that last year. I'm going to have to find that picture and post it again because it is wild. Like, just this entire just black spot. And not a small spot. Oh, my goodness.
Nope.
Oh, well, cool. Thank you so much for taking the time, Dad. I really appreciate that. I know that's
my pleasure.
That's always my favorite because some people, like Sue, like her granddaughter was born. So I was like, oh, happy birthday to your granddaughter. She's 20 today. That's pretty exciting. And I'm like, wait a minute. I know Dad's got a good recount for when that happened. You know the exact moment.
Yep.
It's a good thing it was at the end of your doctor's appointment.
Yeah, I would have had to drive back down to Mississauga, but at least we were able to finish the whole thing before.
And then
things went sideways.
Yeah, no kidding. And sideways they stayed.